Welcome to Mental Health Momentum, a Silicon Slopes podcast. I'm Dr. David Morgan. I'm a licensed psychologist and the Director of Mental Health Awareness here at Silicon Slopes. And on this podcast, we talk about mental health issues in business and beyond, and we look for solutions as well. Let me introduce my guest to you today, Ashley Iverson. Hello, Ashley.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's so good to have you here. Let me tell you about Ashley. She is the founder and creator of Function of Yoga, also known as F Yoga, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. It's clever. It's a trauma-informed, systems and evidence-based approach to yoga and self-regulation, designed for people who think yoga is not for them. With over 15 years of experience working inside inpatient psychiatric hospitals, military populations, and behavioral health settings, Ashley has taught thousands of individuals navigating trauma, addiction, depression, anxiety, traumatic brain injuries, and identity loss. Her work has reached and directly impacted countless lives inside some of the most acute mental health environments, offering tools for regulation and internal stability where they are needed most. Function of Yoga was born in psychiatric hospitals, where patients would often respond to yoga with a visceral F yoga. Instead of seeing this as a resistance barrier, Ashley recognized at the exact edge of transformation. She reframed that moment into F yoga, which is a mathematical function, where the individual is the input, yoga is the system, and change is the output. So all those math nerds out there will know what we're talking about. In this method, yoga is not a lifestyle or an aesthetic, it is math, a repeatable embodied process that produces measurable internal change, even in populations where traditional wellness approaches fail. Ashley is currently pursuing a PhD in health sciences, researching the neurological and physiological effects of Function of Yoga's methodology, including changes in brain connectivity, attention, and self-regulation. Her work bridges neuroscience, behavior change, identity theory, and embodied practice, translating complex systems into language people can actually live by. At its core, her work is about restoring self-authorship and teaching people how to work with the system they already are, so transformation becomes possible. I love that. I was particularly interested in your experience in inpatient psych hospitals. That's where I did my residency for my PhD, was in an inpatient psych hospital. And I loved being there because you see the most intense mental health issues that you rarely see in outpatient settings. So it was a great experience. So anyway.
Yeah.
Well, so tell me, and we were having this conversation before, what's your interest in mental health? How'd you end up in this path?
Yeah. So mental health, it always stood out to me, even just as a little kid, just the concept of what makes us who we are. I was always curious about it. So I remember even in like my first health class ever, the concept of psychology just fascinated me. And just learning the brief topics of that when I was even a teenager. And then when I went to college, I wanted to be a doctor. So I was studying pre-med. And then I found out there was this section of medicine of psychology. So I wanted to do psychiatry at the time, and particularly addiction medicine, actually, because I loved studying the way that medicine worked in the body and behavior around addiction and things like that. So that's what initially got me interested in what we call mental health. Yeah.
And now you teach yoga.
Yeah. Yeah, in short.
Okay.
Yeah, right. I always tell people in short.
Well, yeah, in short, yeah. So tell me about that. So how's that journey?
Yeah, how did it happen?
How did that happen? Yeah.
When I was pursuing my undergrad, I found my own way into yoga, which is a whole nother conversation. But as I was studying in pre-medical sciences, there was so much overlap, considerable overlap between modern medicine, ancient yoga, which most people don't know anything about. Even most yoga teachers don't really know much about ancient yoga. And
ancient, like how long are we talking ago?
Over 5,000 years old.
Okay.
Yoga's over 5,000 years old. It's really incredible. And so we have ancient yoga, modern medicine, and then modern day psychotherapy and psychology. And there was so much overlap between the three disciplines. And as I was studying and teaching yoga and practicing yoga just for fun in my mind, I just couldn't help but be like, there's something here. And this is almost the OG form of medicine. And it's endogenous, and it's gives someone autonomy, and they can participate in their well-being this way. So it just made sense to me at the time. And then it chose me to kind of forge this path to bringing it as a source and a resource for people who are suffering.
Yeah. It's fascinating to me because we do tend to look at information and knowledge in kind of these silos, right? And we say, and this is the purview of psychology, and here's the purview of medicine, and here's the purview of yoga or whatever it is. But there's so much overlap.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much overlap. And I think the more we understand that, the greater access we have to resources, because we get stuck in certain things. So many times I talk with people and their solution to their mental health is to get on medication, which can be absolutely helpful for many, many people, but they get stuck in that alone, and they're looking for simple solutions to a complex problem. And I always say nothing that doesn't exist. Complex solutions to complex problems exist, and simple solutions to simple problems, but not simple to complex. And so we have to look at different ideas and different methodologies to do that. I love that that you employ this in inpatient psychiatric settings. So, because like I said, I worked there and we didn't do anything like that. So is this something that you discovered on your own? Had you heard about it? Tell me about that, because it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, thank you. So I actually was like one of the pioneers of bringing yoga into mental health. When I started my program, it was unheard of. Even when I started my program, I got a lot of pushback about building it. They were like, what? So how it started was, again, in undergrad, and I was seeking experience in mental health as well. And I started to work at a psychiatric hospital or behavioral health hospital. There's so many different terms now, in Salt Lake City, Utah. And as I was just kind of like studying in school and seeing the dynamic of the environment, I had pitched them, let me teach yoga to the patients. And I had quite a few no's. And then one day they needed me. And so I showed up and taught yoga. It was in the hallways of the hospital. We didn't have mats, we didn't have any environment, but it still went so well that we did it another day, and the therapists, the providers, the patients, the feedback was so positive that finally the administrators took a chance on it and gave me the opportunity to start building this practice with the patients. So initially it was a lot of trial and error and learning what works, because it is such a, as you've experienced, unique environment.
Yes.
And you can think you know that environment by what you study or what you read or movies or TV. No, it's not until you're physically in it, witnessing it with your own eyes, that you truly can have the empathy and the experience that goes along with it. So I got the opportunity to start to build this niche, and I just went with it. And through my studies and personal practice, I was able to cohesively blend it into this methodology that is now function of yoga.
So what was the effect that you noticed among the patients at the hospital?
Well, initially just the concept of awareness, you know,
Right.
I mean, bringing your own attention to yourself. I think that when you look at the factor of suffering or wanting something to be different than it is, whatever that may be, and the different spectrums of that for individuals, one's ability to fine tune their attention to their own experience is sort of the first step to any form of change.
Yeah.
And in that environment particularly, you know, we're in a container that's focused on that. And you really start to quickly see people responding to their own ailments of discomfort and suffering just through the direction of their own attention and navigating that.
I wonder if the surge in mental health issues that we seem to be experiencing in our society is directly related to lack of self-awareness and becoming less and less aware. I mean, 100 years ago, what occupied your time, right? I mean, you sat with people and you talked with them, or you'd go out and sit and watch the river just go by, you know, or throw rocks in it or something like that. I remember even growing up in the 80s, and we'd go out and I'd kick a soccer ball back and forth to my friend in the street. We'd do it for hours and hours and hours, and there was nothing to think about. There was nothing to talk about. We just kicked the ball back and forth. So there's a lot of time for introspection, right? Just kind of there with your own thoughts. But we live in a society now where if you don't want to be with your own thoughts, there are a million distractions, right?
Oh, for sure.
And I think that, so yeah, that awareness, I think, is a critical first step to anyone becoming more mentally healthy.
Yeah, but even just the concept of consciousness, the ability to have the opportunity to direct our own awareness. And, you know, when we talk about back in the day and just this evolution of humanity and society, and then with that mental health as the concept, you know, consciousness and our ability to imagine into the future differentiates us from other species.
Right.
And so I feel like in a lot of ways, it's sort of obvious in that it's like fine tuning our own attention is sort of the magic in navigating direction.
But it's not easy to do. I mean, it takes a lot of practice and discipline that I think that for some people, they struggle to do that. They struggle to sit down and just be still.
Even if you practice, you struggle. It's
Exactly.
yeah, that amnesia.
Right. I've started to look into meditation and have done some guided meditations. I was trying to be pretty consistent, and then I was less consistent, and I'm trying to be more consistent again. But even just sitting there for like 7 minutes and trying to really just notice my thoughts, it's laborious almost. It's like cognitively laborious. You wouldn't think that it is, but it is. But I liked it. I liked that it was, I'm trying to think of the way to describe it. It felt intentional. It felt like I was doing something instead of things just happening to me. Which I liked in my thoughts, right?
Yeah, I like that you use that word intentional. And it to me, it's interesting that you say you liked it, because personally, I hate it. It's so challenging. It's so hard to sit and be still, and then everything floods in, and you're like, what am I supposed to be thinking about?
Right.
What am I thinking about? I mean, it gets so complicated. That's my experience. But in Function of Yoga's method, part of it is direction of attention to intention, right? And you sort of find the answers or the solution to your problems.
Okay, explain what that means. Direction of attention to intention.
Well, it will kind of break it down in that mathematical way, right? You have all these different elements that are connecting with each other in senses of patterns, and the goal of math is to find the answers, but not just any answer, the right answer.
Correct, right.
And so when your attention, as you were describing, is scattered or all over the place, and the ability to direct it becomes complicated as we start to practice collecting our attention and sort of seeing the patterns and becoming a witness to ourself, it can create that clarity where you can start to navigate the obstacles of your life or your patterns or yourself in a way that leads you to your answers or your right answers. So it becomes intention with your attention.
I love that. And it seems to me that most people, when they face some sort of challenge, they almost always look to some sort of external savior, basically, like what's going to happen outside of me that is going to help me overcome this? Who's going to help me with this? What's going to change in my life that, like what circumstance is going to change that is going to make this easier? But what you're saying is the beginning to change is internal. It's the person kind of becoming aware of their own capacities, abilities, those sorts of things, how they can focus that, even just conceptualizing the problem differently, right?
Yeah. I do firmly believe in that. I think we bring what's inside into the outside. We manifest it in a way, and that our attention is who we are. What has your attention has you in that moment, and moment by moment to be present. And so the power of direction of attention moment by moment can shift everything.
So how does that work where people are just bombarded by information? Advertisers talk about on Instagram and other things that they have maybe like 1 second to capture someone's attention. I mean, that's literally how little attention we are exerting. In this day and age, what can people do to kind of enhance that self-awareness? Yeah,
it sounds simple, but it's incredibly challenging. But truly, the first
simple and challenging are completely they can exist at the same time. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. The initial element of entry is stop. Just stop. Yeah. Just pause. It's trying to direct your attention while you're multitasking is, kind of setting yourself up for failure. But if truly to just stop, sit down, lie down, just pause. And I would like to also add on to that not with an expectation of how it should or shouldn't be. I think we complicate these practices like meditation and yoga by decorating it. Like I need lavender and I need an eye mask and I need this pillow to sit on, or whatever it may be, these accessories to the experience. They can be helpful, but they're not necessary. Right. Truly just lay down or sit down and just stop for a moment and let yourself be. And then you can kind of open the door and start to go in. But meditation and yoga is not meant to be done on the to-do list with all the other multitasking.
Right. It's counterintuitive, right? If it becomes just another thing you have to do, for sure.
I will add to that, though, that in yoga, there's a term vinyasa. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people have probably heard it. It's used a lot in yoga marketing. And there's this idea that vinyasa is a style of yoga.
That's what I was going to say, but that's not the case.
Well, these words have meaning to them.
Sure.
So in the ancient practice, when we actually look in and define some of the terms, they can help to guide us into it making more sense. And the term vinyasa means to basically to be intentional or deliberate, to place in a special way. So kind of the way you do anything is the way you do everything. So it can become a flow. Most people think the word vinyasa means flow, and essentially it does, but that attention into intention. So as you practice it, it doesn't take quite as much effort from you over time. It becomes your way of being. So then you could technically focus, meditate, do yoga while doing other things. Hopefully it just transpires into your life that way. But we get that through the practice.
Yeah, yeah. I love the idea of being intentional, especially with mental health, because so many people that I've worked with in my career, they feel victimized. And many times they have been, by certain circumstances or individuals, but they feel like they have no power, and they feel like life is just happening to them all the time. And just puts them in this place of impotence. And instead of being able to focus on, well, what can you do? What could you do today to advance your cause? And taking that time to be intentional and saying, I'm going to do this today. There's almost this cognitive mind shift that happens with that, where now they start to feel empowered. They say what I can do instead of what I can't do. And so I think, like we were talking about earlier, kind of like these silos, but how everything is intermixed, right? And these these ancient practices of mindfulness and intentionality, vinyasa, these are things that absolutely are helpful and have been helpful for, millennia, right? But we don't know how to integrate them. But you're teaching us how.
Hopefully. Hopefully I'm offering some source of information that's helpful.
Oh, it's wonderful. Mind-body connection. Can you talk about that? Just how does that work? What's because I guess yoga technically is a body thing, although it's a mind thing too. So
yeah,
yes, okay.
Yeah. I might detour a little bit into what is yoga to be
Please,
able to get
yes.
there. Yeah. So that's always where I start in any discussion of yoga is, well, what is yoga?
Yeah.
Because if I were to stand in front of a room and put that question out there, which I do 5 times a week, I get multiple responses that are all varying with some similarity. I would say that the most common thing I hear is the word stretch. And then it kind of moves from there, stretch, meditation, to be with your mind and your body, to relax. Those are some of the terms I typically will get. And the first thing I try to do is offer the information that the word yoga means to join, to bring together, to connect. You can use whatever synonym connects with you, but to join, that's all you're trying to do. So it actually has nothing to do with your body. That can be a tool to help you generate a form of connection, but it could be your mind, it could be sound or vibration. There's endless elements of creating connection with. So in the ancient practice, which is over 5,000 years old, the physical aspect of it is actually the newest form of yoga. It's less than 300 years old, the physical practice of yoga. So when we talk about connecting mind and body, first step is obviously attention, direction of attention. The physical body is loud. We have pain, we have discomfort, we have urges, we have sensations, we seek satisfaction, and we do want it quick, usually. And so to build an awareness of the physical experience taking place, and not necessarily with the agenda to change, fix, hide, numb, drug, just to notice.
Just to be aware.
Just to feel your body and even not understand it. There's not a right or a wrong. It's just stop, pay attention, let it be, and then we can start to go from there. But I think the first step of creating any sort of mind-body connection is to pause and actually just feel your own body, whatever sensations may or may not be there.
And how do you think that can improve someone's mental health? Just because, like you said, it's not necessarily with the intention to change. And I agree. Like when I'm doing my guided meditations, it's literally just be aware, notice, and it's so strange. Notice your hands on your, laying on the ground or laying on your legs, and it's things you don't even notice all the time, but it's, I do like it. So then how does that get into our emotions?
Oh, this is such a great, this is my favorite thing to talk about. So, I have to reframe the question in my mind though. I got a little confused. We talked about mind body connection and how it gets into your emotions.
Sure. Yeah. Like so as people become more aware of what's
Mm-hmm.
going on in
Mm-hmm.
them, then how does that, what's the net positive then for their emotional experience?
Yeah. So well, I'm going to talk a little bit about my population as well, right? Because I do work in inpatient
Yeah.
mental health and I primarily work with active duty military. So I work with men and women that fly in from all over the world with an array of diagnoses, right? Trauma, PTSD, different things like that. And so in such a sensitive environment, to kind of stop and pause and just feel what sensations are there, where they're there, like what's going on, and then slowly introduce some sort of breathing, something for the mind to come back to when it's trying to maybe escape or run away from that present moment, and slowly introduce any sort of movement and then pause and be with it. The classes I teach definitely range from a lot of stillness to pouring sweat, like a huge workout. It doesn't take a prescribed level of physical activity to generate the experience. But as you just start to introduce these concepts of awareness and then adding on more sensory experience and keeping that awareness with it, eventually you hit a point where it's inevitable to feel how you actually feel.
Right.
And that can be a complicated experience for everybody because it's different. Even today with my women, we were going over how their experience goes in yoga. And the responses were from, I feel such a release. I feel amazing too. I absolutely hate it. I'm embarrassed. I don't even know what I'm doing. And all of that is right.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
to break it down and reassure people that change is inevitable. It's mainly the only thing that's really guaranteed in life is
Exactly.
change. So that's just going to come with it.
And is it important? Well, I know it is. I'm just looking for reassurance from someone who knows this as well. Sitting with our emotions is critical. We have to learn to do this. We become a society where any sort of negative emotion, we immediately want to make it go away. And we have more tools now than ever to make those go away very, very quickly.
Yeah.
But I think there's power in being able to sit with that and just to kind of say, it's okay to feel this way. We have all these constructs as well, right? That we can't feel this way. We shouldn't feel this way. And that adds on anxiety on top of anxiety or depression on top of depression, instead of just saying, you know what, today was a bad day and it's okay for me to feel sad about that.
Yeah.
Or I lost my job and it's okay to be
Of
upset
course.
about that, right? That's okay. But we're so out of practice in sitting with those emotions.
Yeah. Emotions are a symptom of a belief.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
so your emotion is information. And to be able to build a relationship with your own internal communication system, with your body exposing to you what you believe in, it can guide you.
Yes.
And so it's one of the most powerful things.
I love that. That emotion is information. It's data, basically, right? And then you take that, you put it back in the system, figure out, well, what happened? Why was I feeling that way? What was my reaction? Like you said, our beliefs, our thoughts are critical. Understanding those as well is so important in managing our mental health. But I would say that people struggle to even know what they're thinking half the time.
That's exactly
right.
it.
Thoughts are just racing through our minds, a million
we're all
miles an hour,
lost
and
in ourselves.
exactly. But this stillness, this joining, this connection that you're talking about, I think really does provide an opportunity for people to stop, like you said, stop, sit down, lay down, just be present with what's going on in the moment, and assimilate that data for future decision making.
Yeah, you just receive clarity of yourself.
Yes.
You start to see clear. The goal of yoga is to see things as they are,
Yes.
see what is. And it's inevitable when you sit and pause and actually pay attention to what you feel and let it come up, but not really let it push you around.
Right.
Instead, you actually feel that discomfort. And I do believe that takes time, especially when we're so conditioned and used to finding quick satisfaction, running from what we feel, whatever the vice may be for each individual person. It's hard to sit in an uncomfortable shape, Like I don't want to imply that yoga should just be easy. You just lay down and close your eyes. And no, that's how you kind of get into the opportunity to navigate what you feel. But it should absolutely challenge you.
Yeah.
It should push you to the point of F yoga. Like that's the whole, now you know you're getting somewhere with yourself when that urge to react, respond, give up, scream, cry starts to come up for you. You're finally building a relationship with what you typically avoid.
Yeah. I love that. And pushing yourself beyond what's comfortable. Oh, that's just critical in every area of life. And only good things happen when we do that. There's no downside to pushing yourself beyond what is your comfort zone, because you learn things about yourself. Almost always you discover, you know what, I could do that. Instead of thinking for years you couldn't. And it expands our ability to do difficult things from there on. So I love that.
Yeah, something I even remind myself of when something's challenging is I'll reflect back and think, what are you proud of in your life that was just easy? And then I remind myself, you're most proud of what you fought for. It was a challenge for you. So
that's amazing. Well, if people want to learn more about Function of Yoga, where do they go?
Yeah, functionofyoga.com. There's Function of Yoga Instagram, or F Yoga, the formulaic approach, which is F with the parentheses around yoga.
Right.
Yeah, that's usually where you can find the resources for that.
Awesome. Ashley, thank you so much for coming and sharing your expertise. And it was a great conversation for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And thanks everyone for listening today. Remember that change starts with you, and together we can increase our mental health momentum.